Magneto has been around since the early days of Marvel, which means he's got quite the history. Grab a snack and your water bottle, we are in this together. Okay, so Magneto is born Max Eisenhart. He is Jewish, and this next point is very important. It informs almost every choice he makes in his life. He was born during the Second World War in Germany. He wasn't treated well in school, but he did develop a crush on a girl named Magda. His family relocated to Poland, but that wasn't safe for long, and Max ended up in a camp. Well, there he had to see his friends get experimented on, along with all the other horrors, so he's not doing well. There was literally only one good thing that came out of the entire situation. Max found Magda again, and the pair were able to escape together. They fell in love, got married, and then had a kid. It was looking up for our guy, which is why it all literally came crashing down shortly after. In the span of one day, he discovered his mutant power of magnetism, watched his daughter take a one-way trip to the ground while he was held down by soldiers, then eliminated said soldiers using his new powers, which scared his wife so bad she literally ran away from him, tried to lay his daughter to rest, but then was attacked again by soldiers. Magda was unknowingly pregnant with twins when she ran. For a long time, it was established that those twins were Wanda and Pietro, but that's been retconned. They are not his kids. More on that later. Max wanted to search for his wife, so he took on a new name, Eric Lensher. He found out she passed away, so he added Magnus to his middle name. He moved to Israel and started volunteering in a psychiatric hospital. This decision was going to change his life forever, because in that very same hospital was Charles Xavier. At this point, being a mutant was a very bad thing, so the pair would be getting in debates with each other about mutants on Earth, not knowing the other was just like them. It was through their debates that we get a glimpse into what the conflict between these two is going to be. Charles sees the idea humans and mutants can exist together peacefully, but Eric, with his dark past, doesn't think that. He is in the boat of humanity will not let mutants rest, and they haven't let him rest ever, so I see where he's coming from. Eric realizes that he and Charles just aren't going to find a middle ground, so he leaves. The next thing our guy does is actually pretty heroic. He uses his powers to track down Yahtzee with an N war criminals. He is supposed to give the criminals to the government that sent him out, but instead he's giving them to Israel for trial. For most part, no one really cares until it's someone they care about. When Magnus tries to give over someone they actually wanted, Magnus's agency decides to end his girlfriend at the time. In front of him. He doesn't take that well, then ending the people who did that to his girl. Now Magnus really doesn't believe in human kindness anymore and takes up his most famous name, Magneto. Magneto goes away for a bit to regroup, then eventually heads to Brooklyn, New York to gather up mutants for his campaign against humans. To move undetected, we have another name change. Magneto is now going by Michael Xavier, but only on his passports and documents. To his few friends, he is still either Magnus or Eric. His famous red and purple ensemble is courtesy of Cassandra Michaels. Magneto wanted to fit in with all the other heroes and villains of the Earth. If everyone else has a fun little outfit, he should get one too. Well, on a date with Cassandra, the pair are attacked by a monster. This fight is important because it's the first time he ever wore his iconic costume, but he also briefly considered the notion of being a hero. Magneto had an affair with a married woman shortly after, Susanna, which resulted in a child, Lorna, later Polaris. Susanna hid the child's actual father from her husband Arnold. Arnold decided to confront Susanna about her infidelity on a plane with their daughter present. Lorna didn't take the fighting very well, and her powers accidentally crashed the plane. Her parents didn't make it. She created a magnetic pulse so big that Magneto was drawn to it and found her. But the life he led wasn't for a child, so he got her memories rewritten, and then we don't see her for a while. A lot later, after the plane crash, Magneto returns, but this time with a fancy helmet. It's designed to be like a telepathy shield. It also looks great. He also spent his time away building an orbital asteroid M. It was to be the home to him and his Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. He got a few mutants on the team, but most notably he recruited his maybe not kids, Wanda and Pietro. He didn't know that these two were possibly his kids when he recruited them. Wanda and Pietro didn't want to be there, but they felt they owed Magneto because he saved their lives. At this point in his journey, Magneto is almost certifiably insane. Turns out the more he uses and abuses his powers, the more insane he becomes. It probably took a lot to build Asteroid M. Okay, the X-Men and the Brotherhood. Magneto tries to take over humanity a few different ways. He is beaten by the X-Men each time. Frustrated, he kidnapped the X-Men Angel, and then in the fight to get Angel back, Asteroid M was destroyed. The X-Men escape with Angel in an escape pod, but after the X-Men reach the Earth, the pod goes back up. Magneto is able to use his power to pull the pod up from Earth. Powerful dude. And then it's presumed the Brotherhood make it out, land somewhere on Earth. Later, there was a brief moment where Magneto fought with an evolutionary, but no one remembers because when the evolutionary left, he erased everyone's memories. So that means Magneto is left more insane and angry than when he started, and he doesn't know why. Magneto is now trying to recruit Brotherhood members. He was captured by someone called Stranger. He is an alien scientist that Magneto wanted to recruit. Magneto's disappearance left an opening for Wanda and Pietro to join the Avengers. That's the end of that Brotherhood. Gone. Magneto doesn't like being captured and escapes, recaptured, returned to Earth again. When he gets back, this is important, he takes Wanda and Pietro with him to the United Nations and demands that mutants get their own country. He still doesn't believe it's safe for mutants in the regular world. The twins send for the X-Men come and get them, and Magneto ends up in some water, left to drown, but he uses his powers to burrow through the Earth. He ends up burrowing far enough that he finds something called the Savage Land, a powerful place that he set off to rule. His rule didn't last long, the X-Men took him out. Later, he found a bunch of alien equipment that he used to create Alpha, the ultimate mutant. This Alpha guy rebelled against Magneto and turned him into a baby! Baby Magneto. Everyone just kind of hoped that they could re-raise Magneto to be a better person. He's just a baby. Not for long, he was turned back, but younger than before the baby curse, so now he's young again. More fights with the X-Men, then he makes a new evil Brotherhood. The new evil squad fails a mission, and Magneto abandons them. Moving on, Magneto decides that he wants to end the nuclear arms race by taking over every government in the world. He really gives it his all, but when he ends a mutant kid, he reflects on his life and how this was never his plan. His remorse calls him to abandon his world conquest. In this window of Magneto maybe thinking of abandoning evil, Professor X approaches with Moira McTaggart. She gets reborn every time she dies, and when that happens, she can reset the timeline. She sees Magneto fail over and over again, so Professor X goes to him with this info and basically says, on our own we always fail, but together we can actually make a mutant-safe world. Magneto, on board. So now he's like good guy adjacent. Professor X gets kidnapped and hooked up to a machine that would use his telepathy to end all living mutants. Magneto helps save the day by distracting the professor while the X-Men destroy the machine, but then when it's all over, they once again are not seeing eye to eye and part ways. Magneto later appeared as a participant in the Secret Wars. Secret Wars was a third party basically stealing a bunch of heroes and villains to fight each other to win a prize. The entire thing was weird enough to make Magneto reflect on the similarities between mutants and mankind, a feat for him. He seduced the Wasp at one point, helped the X-Men battle Galactus, everybody died, everyone's brought back to life, the heroes prevailed, Magneto is now on the good side, then Mr. Fantastic beams everybody back to Earth, Magneto to Asteroid M. Asteroid M is now at version 2. Asteroid M is destroyed again. Right around this time, the Mutant Registration Act was passed, and now it is illegal to be an unregistered mutant. The thing that made Secret Wars was the Beyonder. When Magneto senses that he's coming back, he allies himself with the X-Men again. During this time, Magneto visits a memorial site and is attacked there by Freedom Force. He gives up to trial by the World Court. Do you know what you have to do to go to trial in front of the World Court? Trial is interrupted and Professor X is badly injured to the point where he can't run the school for gifted youngsters. Magneto is put in charge of the school and is now an X-Men. Magneto has an era in the Hellfire Club, not from Stranger Things. It started as a political socialite club thing, so it has a lot of important connections. Magneto as a member worked out really well for the X-Men. It helped give them extra protection from attackers and access to government secrets. What hero wouldn't want that? Magneto hears that parts of his Asteroid M are scattered around Earth. Quest time, he is off to find them. The Avengers can't seem to accept that Magneto is trying to turn a new leaf and keep trying to get him. The X-Men keep saving him. Magneto reveals he equipped his helmet with tech to control any mind. But again, the leaf is turned, so he won't use it for bad. What he does use it for is his second trial in the World Court. He thinks that if the World Court were to execute him, that would start a human-mutant war, so he uses his helmet to make the judge acquit him. After this, Magneto destroyed it and was back back at the school. Later, Magneto left the school and the Hellfire Club, but he had prepared for it. He had rebuilt Asteroid M again. He returned to his villain ways because he felt he could never properly stand in for Professor X. During this era, he participated in acts of vengeance alongside other prominent villains. He also used that time to get close to and confront Red Skull, who you may recall as someone on the wrong side of World War II. He left the Red Skull in severe solitary confinement to reflect on the horrors he helped commit. Remember Magneto's origin and what he lived through at the start of his life? That is why. Magneto was ready to retire. He built a new orbital base and wanted to just live his life. No rest for the wicked. A new group of mutants showed up looking for him. They inspired Magneto to try again to make a mutant safe space. He tried to do it with Asteroid M. X-Men and many world governments said no. Pretty soon he starts up his war with humans and the X-Men again. The UN activated Magneto protocols. Do you know what you have to do to have the UN develop security protocols just for you? The protocol messes with Earth's magnetic field enough that Magneto can't use his powers on Earth. If he's off-world, he can't come back. Magneto's not happy, and he sends out a pulse wave so powerful it knocks out every electronic device on the Earth. Professor X stopped Magneto by shutting down his mind. Magneto's out of the game for a while until this guy named Joseph appears, claiming to be Magneto. He looks like a young Magneto, he's got the skill set, but it's not him because the real Magneto shows up later. Turns out that guy was a clone. Magneto briefly took over the Earth's magnetosphere to blackmail the UN into giving mutants a home. He got an island, but the people of that island fought back. Magneto won. He used a lot of power in that fight, so he was in recovery. While recovering, these things called Mega Centennials attacked and almost killed him, but they didn't. He was hidden away by his followers. The ideas of Magneto grew while he was away, and many mutants joined his side. They even had merch. While Magneto was MIA, this guy named Zorn showed up, pretended to be Magneto. Well, actually, he was Zorn pretending to be Magneto, pretending to be Zorn. Long story, we cover it in top 10 worst Marvel retcons we still can't believe if you want to check it out. The important thing is everyone thinks Magneto is dead by the end of it all. We have made it to Mutant M Day. Scarlet Witch goes off the rails. She absolutely decimates the mutant population of Earth. Magneto, still alive, he just has no powers. Brief villain period, but soon joins the X-Men again. He gets framed for a crime in the middle of his redemption campaign. He was framed by Joseph, his clone. Joseph gets locked in X-Jail, done with that. The universe gets destroyed again, then restored. Magneto made a new Asteroid M and founded a new brotherhood. He's consistent. We are at the creation of Krakoa, finally! Krakoa is the mutant safe haven Magneto always dreamed of. The governments liked Krakoa because mutants could use it to create cures for diseases. It's a win-win situation. Everything is going great. There is a Hellfire party and Magneto pulls Wanda aside. He tells her he will always be her father and it's super sweet. They hug it out. Forgot to mention, before in 2015 it was revealed that Wanda and Pietro were not actually Magneto's kids. Wanda creates a family curse. Magneto's unaffected, so that's what makes this moment in the 2021 feature extra sweet. Okay, back into it. Wanda drops during the conversation that she's going to bring everybody back who died, but to do that, she must die. Magneto is tasked with reviving her, and it works. We're almost there, everybody. One day, while Professor X and Magneto were in a meeting, they get a distress call from Moira. Remember her? Only when they get to her, she's not there, disappeared. What is there is villain Nimrod and soldiers. They battle, they actually die, but they are revived. The whole thing was stressful enough to make Magneto retire to Arakko, so not really retirement. There was a big battle with the Eternal Uranus. He put up a fight, but ultimately didn't make it. Magneto I'm talking about. The perfect send-off for Magneto. One of the other, Eternals people turns into his first daughter, Anya, to wave him off as he dies, and I cried when I read this.
When it comes to superhero mutations, there's a few I know that most people wish they could have. Heck, I've personally wished a few times that I could teleport. But what about the mutations that aren't so desirable? Ones that are more harmful than helpful or just plain old icky? Let me know what you think they should be, and let's get into today. For starters, Maggot was a disaster of late 90s extremitude. He hails from that miserable period where every new X-Men either A, had the same power as a more famous previous X-Men, except more extreme, or B, had a confusing mutant power that seemed to operate purely according to the whims of plot necessity, or C, had an absolutely ridiculous mutant power that wouldn't be useful ever for anyone. But he falls under category C in my opinion. His stomach was 2 biomech slugs, which could eat anything and give him super strength, but he was really conflicted about it and had unnecessary letters in his name. Who in their right mind would want slugs as a part of your body? We left that in the history. Also, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't he basically the love child of Matter Eater Lad and Spawn? For reference, he was this flamboyant South African mutant who spoke an exaggerated African slang and originally was advertised as one of the strangest X-Men. Yeah. His powers turned him blue and caused him constant pain, which, once again, not helping in the desirable powers category. I don't need pain. He also has one of the worst career arcs out of anybody. He was dumped by the X-Men into Generation X, and then immediately dropped by Generation X after 1 issue into a prison camp. There, well, he was killed by that reality's Iron Man. Bye-bye. With a moniker that's just Skin, yeah, this next guy isn't starting off too strong. What's his power? Well, it's pretty simple, 6 feet of extra stretchy skin. Angelo Espinosa was a former gang member from the East LA area who faked his own death for numerous reasons. He wanted to hide his newly manifested mutation from his family, I wonder why, and also he wanted to leave that part of his life behind. He was one of 4 young mutants, including M, Husk, and Blink, who was adopted by the Phalanx, a techno-organic alien race, and why? Well, they wanted to uncover the secret behind mutations. So his power, I really don't want to talk about it, but it's 6 feet of extra flappy skin that he can control, which has got to be hell on wheels to lug around. Skin isn't a combat organ. It's so weak against damage that we as a humanity invented armor. It's so weak against nothing that we invented clothes. When your mutant power makes you more vulnerable to injury, you really shouldn't be calling attention to yourself, which is advice Skin didn't take. He was eventually crucified on the lawn of the X-Mansion, and the wrong name was written on his gravestone, and then he was dug up and cremated. That's writing somebody out of continuity with extreme prejudice. Even in his depiction when he's just hanging out, his backpack has unnecessarily scrolled dangly flaps. This guy couldn't win. Beak was intended to show how mutation could look hideous, which isn't a great idea for a good guy in a visual medium. Look, pardon me, I'm a little vain when it comes to my own appearance. So he had all the powers that you would leave off the list if you were designing a human-bird hybrid. Lighter bones made him fragile as all get out. A beak made him, well, hideous. Feathers meant his most powerful mutant attack was tickling, and his wings made him barely able to glide. And that's in a universe where other mutants can fly anytime the writers forget they can't. And they called him Beak, because out of all the words that flash to mind when you see him, well, it's not an awful one. Even the X-Men stuck him in a special class, and sadly in that context, special is a derogatory word. His brightest idea was, get this, attacking Magneto with a metal baseball bat. Yeah. Magneto pretty quickly chucked him up into the air, which granted is sort of a poor strategic decision when you're fighting a bird guy, and Beak sucked so hard he still nearly died. You have a bird guy, and he's almost defeated by being tossed in the air? Come on. And that's still not the most terrible thing he's ever done. No, that was getting his insectoid girlfriend pregnant, because when I saw what the 2 of them produced, I'm never getting that visual out of my head, and now neither are you. So there was a 1960s comic book character by the name of Captain Marvel. No, not that one. Nope, not the other one. This is one of the half dozen or so who use the same name. Look, I didn't say I was only going to talk about X-Men mutations today. This guy was just so weird that I had to mention him. It's a version you've never heard of. A short-lived character who, upon shouting his magic word, split, could make his body divide into pieces that operated independently. So you can never order a banana split in your life ever again? Or offer to split the bill at a restaurant? Yeah, no thanks. He was a jet-booted and laser-eyed alien android powered by an M emblem in medallion who had been sent by Earth by his creators to escape the atomic destruction of their war-ravaged planet. He was published by Myron Fass's short-lived MF Enterprises. And once again, it's unrelated to Fawcett Comics, DC, Marvel. He was only in a couple of comics in the late 60s before legal challenges shut the entire publisher down, and by a few I think he only lasted 4 comics. I wonder why. There have been multiple famines over the years, usually with a variation of the same wasting ability that replicates starvation and makes people weak. Look, maybe this might sound intriguing if you fancy yourself a supervillain, but it sounds miserable and useless to me. And it's strange enough that there are multiple mutants with this power, like where that 2 nickel meme comes into place. But the most interesting and nonsensical variation is the famine of the Final Horsemen, which was an elite team that would only be used if everything else had failed. Specifically, Jeb Lee was a Civil War veteran whose mutant gifts gave him the ability to give people bio-auditory cancer. I can't think of any world where this would be useful. Yes, I get it, bad guy, but still. So they were awakened by Clan Aqaba in the present to serve a new child, Apocalypse, and later Apocalypse's heir, an ascended Archangel. Well, after Archangel's defeat, Famine went to work for which, okay, but was killed by the Apocalypse twins. Honestly, after that I'm like, geez, should I do a top 10 X-Men with crappy names? Tar Baby had the amazing mutant power of secreting an adhesive all over his body, causing anything he touched to permanently stick to him. By all appearances a nice guy, he just had an unfortunate mutation and name. Now it's hard to tell Baby's ethnicity from looking at his pictures and depictions, but who on earth thought it was a good idea to name any character after a racial slur? I can see where they got the name, but why not flypaper or attachment disorder? Anything's a step up, really. Because like on top of having a crappy, heinous, awful name, being a walking giant glue trap sounds like a miserable existence. He was a Morlock living with the Dream Dwellers. It was a subgroup who survived the mutant massacre. Briefly lived with X-Factor at their headquarters before returning to the tunnels. Now Baby was eventually captured and killed by the Weapon X program at their Neverland facility, and I never want to hear about Baby ever again. QWERTY had the remarkable power of seeing the future. Now when I say that, I'm sure you're all like, well, I'd love to see the future, what are you talking about? You're speaking crazy, Alexa. Okay, by seeing the future, I mean seeing all possible futures. Every possible future from every possible action every moment of the day. Which basically left her catatonic, because that's so overwhelming. Think about it. Every day, you make a million little decisions without even thinking too hard about them. Like, I made the choice to dress like this today. I made the choice to turn on the light this morning. Imagine seeing the future for every choice that's made for every person ever. It would make you want to hide in a secluded cave far, far away from anything living. Like, I'm not talking deserted island, because I think this also translates to wildlife. Thankfully for QWERTY, and I only say this thankfully for her, she was depowered on M-Day, but sadly she passed away because of it. But she did write the Book of Prophecy found by Delphi, and that Mask's used to try and start a human mutant war, which is not so good. I do like that her name comes from the arrangement of the first 6 letters found in a computer keyboard though, like that's neat. I don't think it fits her very well, but what do I know? I'm not a comic book writer. Trevor Hawkins was one of the new mutants to manifest their powers after the war between the Avengers and the X-Men, and quickly enrolled in the Jean Grey School for Higher Learning due to being bullied in his public school. Why was he being bullied and harassed? Poor guy was covered in eyes, earning them the oh so creative moniker of Eye Boy. How many eyes? A grand total of 57, which yes, allows him to see in multiple directions, but still. And he's like, yeah, I can't really use them for an offensive purpose, but I can see things that no one else can see, including nearly limitless varieties of spectral visions. So sure, yeah, he's got improved marksmanship, great nonverbal communication skills, apparently he can see dust motes as plain as day, also he can see really great, really far distances, but is that really worth being covered in so many little ickies that would make anybody with trypophobia run for their lives? Oh, I almost forgot. His many eyes can also see and track pheromone secretions made from specific human beings, which great in battle, super creepy out of battle. So Wraith, well, he could turn his skin invisible, and other people's skin invisible, which that's gonna give you like an ice cream headache. Brain freeze, which by the way, note how I said turn his skin invisible, not turn himself invisible, so you've just got like a see-through body, which, ugh. Yes, I get it, turning yourself invisible might be a little too cool for Hector Mendoza, pun intended. He was on his way to a doctor's appointment when a mob attacked him because of his appearance, but was saved by Phoenix, who recruited Hector into a new team of X-Men who was set on a mission to rescue Charles Xavier, who had been kidnapped by Magneto. On the way, Jean Grey was like, let's give you a little crash course in using your powers and how to be an X-Men. So during the fight with Magneto, Hector was able to transfer his invisibility field to Magneto, causing him sufficient disorientation, and everybody else was able to rescue Xavier, which yay! Now despite his pivotal role in that conflict, Hector decided to leave the X-Men. He wanted to discover and learn his abilities on his own. And poor guy lost his mutant powers during M-Day. How about we end today with another mutation concept that just ticks me off, and that's the Blob. Yeah, early X-Men comics got strange, and this guy fit right in. Red Duke's powers gave him super strength and made him the proverbial unmovable object by controlling gravity around his body. He was also invulnerable and gained mass, becoming morbidly obese. Now unlike skin, his body possesses a high degree of resistance to injury. The fat tissues that make up the Blob's epidermis are able to absorb the impact of rifle explosives, cannonballs, bazookas, even torpedoes. The fat tissue is resilient enough to revert to its normal shape within seconds after deformation caused by impact, making it virtually impervious to physical injury. The skin can't be punctured or lacerated by most known materials, can't be frostbitten, can't be ravaged by disease, and we have the great elasticity and toughness to thank, which, great. And also the skin cells grow and replace themselves really quickly as well. But he's got some weaknesses. Short temper, lack of foresight, lack of intelligence, and easily manipulated self-esteem. He originally thought of himself as an extra strong freak, and used his powers as a performer in a carnival. Now, the only reason to make the Blob obese is old school fat phobia. He could have just been large and muscular. That would have worked even better with the pliancy of his skin, because he could suck people into the folds between muscles, turning his, amazing physique beautifully grotesque. But just like skin, he was burdened with an appearance that just didn't make sense and is considered undesirable by most folks.
Kicking off the list at number 10, his childhood. One of the origin stories for the twins involves them being experimented on from Loki's scepter. Another one of those origins is when they were raised by a cow. Yep, you heard me, I said a cow. Bova Ayrshire was one of the few new men who stayed behind after her creator left to go back to space. So basically, she's this evolved cow created by the High Evolutionary as one of his new men. Now, these animals that are given humanoid form and a pretty smart brain to go along with as well, their purpose was to be this nurse or caretaker for other new men and the Knights of Wundagore. Then a pregnant Magda Lensher came along the Citadel after leaving her husband and had Wanda and Pietro and left them with the new nice cow lady. Now, eventually Bova gave up the twins to the Maximoffs who lived down the mountain, and even Miss America and the Wizard declined the twins. So nobody wanted these poor twins. So right from the beginning, you know it's gonna be a rough one. And before we continue on to number 9, guys, if you haven't already, could you please go down and give us a thumbs up on this video, because those likes really do us wonders for our channel. Thank you so much for the support. Now back to some Quicksilver. Number 9, genetic experiment. When they were just kids, Pietro and Wanda Maximoff also had a tragic origin in the MCU. The twins, just at age 10, were in their apartment building in Sokovia when a bomb collapsed the building. Now, this was the reason their parents had passed away, and then the second shell hit, however, but it didn't explode. Rather, it left the twins to sit there and stare at it, horrified that at any second it could go off, with the word Stark on the side of the shell as well. Very important. They grew up with a different mindset towards the Avengers, and this led to them being experimented on by Baron von Strucker. This is also where their powers come from. Now, this is something that is slowly coming back to light in the MCU. Now, with WandaVision's ominous commercials that keep popping up, many fans have suggested that they are hints at her past traumas, and the commercial with the toaster with the blinking red light could be a reference to when the twins were waiting for the bomb to go off when they were kids. I suppose it's not very easy to forget something like that growing up. Now, with the last 2 episodes just around the corner, we finally get to see what's going on in that magical mutant brain of hers. Number 8, forced to join the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Pietro follows his twin sister Wanda everywhere. He is extremely protective, and if she wants to join a Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, well, I guess he has to come along for the trip to make sure everything goes well. I guess. Since their first appearance in X-Men issue 4, Wanda felt like she owed Magneto because he saved their lives. But Quicksilver can't really disagree and leave her, no way. So he's like, whatever, screw it, I'll join as well. Although he makes it very clear where he stands with their ideas. They didn't do much with the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, or at least Quicksilver tried not to do much. Like when Magneto wanted to nuke a country, Quicksilver steps in and opposes him. Number 7, depressed. In the Son of M storyline, Quicksilver is not having an easy go. See, he fell into a deep depression after losing his powers and his sister and his reputation all at the same time, which I'll get into a little bit later. So while walking around the city, opposed to his normal blink and you'll miss him speed, he came across some thugs. And when he tried to help out, naturally, his powers weren't there to be relied on, so he got knocked to the ground in one punch. And just then, Spider-Man comes in to save the day. He webs everybody up, and then he noticed that there was just one guy missing from the initial count. So he grabbed and webbed up Pietro as he was trying to jump off a building. Spider-Man isn't happy with him at this point either. His son is no longer alive, and he can't bury him because, well, he never existed thanks to Pietro's bright idea. So he tries to jump again off the building. This time he succeeds in hitting the ground. Now, luckily he was saved, but this is just still not a great time for Pietro. Probably one of the worst times. Number 6, Age of Ultron sacrifice. When the twins were introduced in the MCU, it was during Avengers Age of Ultron, when Baron von Strucker had used Loki's scepter to experiment on the Maximoff twins, resulting in one becoming a witch and the other being super fast. Now, apparently he's not as fast as we all thought, because when it came down to getting Hawkeye and the daughter of a Sokovian villager to safety, he was just a little bit too slow. He thought it was a better idea to run in front of the bullets and take them all rather than, you know, just zip them to safety. It didn't help that 1 year earlier we saw it in theaters, Evan Peters' version of Quicksilver in X-Men Days of Futures Past, and he was having a great time. He was pushing bullets out of the way with ease, he was making guards punch each other, he was trying out soup while he was doing his job. It seemed like a breeze, and he was rocking out to some music the entire time as well. But then Joss Whedon came in and decided to not make him as fast or powerful as that Quicksilver that we all kind of got used to, and then we see Aaron Taylor Johnson as Quicksilver die in just one movie, just like that. He's like, hey, nice to meet you. I'm Aaron Taylor John. Okay, and I'm out. Awesome. See you guys. Have a great set. Cheers. Number 5, Marvel zombies. If there's one thing we know now in 2021, it's that a virus can spread pretty damn fast. Hence why I'm in my closet instead of in the studio. We're trying our best here to keep clean, and keep things moving, but this world makes it hard to do so because of this virus. And in a world where we're trying to slow that spread speed down at all costs, a guy like Quicksilver would be the opposite when it comes to help. So in Marvel Zombies, Quicksilver is actually part of the group sent to Earth to battle these zombies, but when he comes across Scarlet Witch in danger, he runs over to help her out, only to find out it's actually Mystique in disguise, an infected Mystique in disguise. And then it's over just like that. She bites him, turning the fastest guy in the world into a zombie. And then he uses his incredible speed to turn everybody all around the world into zombies super fast. He's actually the sole reason it became unstoppable. So let's keep that Quicksilver out of this world. Stay in 616, go, do your thing, have fun, but just don't come into this one. Don't come into 2021. We don't want that. Number 4, tried to heal mutants. So after the House of M incident, Pietro tried desperately to bring his powers back, so he snuck into the Terrigen Mist chamber in attempts to fix himself, and while he was there, he stole the pieces of Terrigen and exposed them to his daughter Luna in order to give her powers. Now Pietro thinks this is the best idea ever and that he's solved it. So he opens a clinic in Mutant Town to restore everybody's powers, and this resulted in many losing their lives due to the powers of the Terrigen Mists. And Pietro had to live with that on top of everything else that he already had to live with. The guy just can't catch a break. Number 3, too close for comfort. We go now to the Ultimate X-Men series. Okay, so since the twins were a big deal in the Brotherhood, they were very dedicated to the cause. And when it comes to the Ultimates, they got a little too dedicated to said cause. In 2001, the Ultimate pair is when things got a little weird in the comics. So one of the Ultimates front cover made readers do a double take with the duo side by side, hand in hand, with their fingers interlocked. Not even like this, like how Friends do it. It's like, you know. Yeah, the writers decided to give them a romantic relationship, you know, just to mix it up a little bit. Why not? They were always pretty close from their first issue. I mean, even Pietro told Toad that he was chewing too loud in front of his sister, so that was fine. But then it's when this came into the picture, things got weird. When Mark Miller brought them over to the Ultimates, it got a little crazy, and he was pretty defensive about Wanda to Captain America because, well, Cap was suggesting Wanda wears less revealing clothes to make an example, all because Captain America was suggesting that Wanda was a little bit scandally clad for the job. But when Quicksilver backs her up, it's more of a romantic way, which I feel like we could all have gotten without, you know, we don't want to see this version of Quicksilver, I don't think. Bring back the zombie one. I mean, anything's better than this weird thing. Even Captain America's face in that comic is like, oh. Now this also happened to end with Quicksilver unable to catch bullets fired at Wanda, and then one of those bullets ripped through his hand, taking out his lover slash sister. I mean, sure, that's one way to write somebody out of a relationship. Number 2, he lost his powers. When Wanda lost control of her powers during the House of M storyline, she was taken in by Magneto, who had asked Xavier for his help. So the Avengers and the X-Men met up to try and figure out a solution here. So at this meeting, they had talked about ending Wanda's life in order to ensure nobody else gets hurt or wiped out. So Quicksilver heard about this idea and ran to tell Magneto, but Magneto even thought, you know, maybe they're right. Maybe this is the best case. So Quicksilver went and convinced Wanda to use her powers in tandem with Xavier's telepathy to warp reality and create this new world where everybody is happy. This world being led by Magneto, with the twins literally being royalty. This world eventually started crumbling when Layla Miller used her powers and several heroes began remembering real life. They believed Magneto to be responsible, but they ended up tracking it down to Quicksilver and how it was his idea in the first place for Wanda to do this. So Magneto lashes out at the twin and Wanda restored reality, but this time with most of the mutants depowered, including her brother Quicksilver. And finally, number 1, dead and back again. In that House of M storyline, we see a mentally unstable Wanda Maximoff, and she created this new world where mutants are now the main bread and butter, and humans are the minority. Magneto, upon first realizing how this happened, blames Quicksilver for convincing Wanda to change reality. So he lashed out and crushes Quicksilver with the body of a Sentinel. Now he did this to get back at Pietro for abusing his dream, and then Scarlet Witch showed up and quickly revived her brother. But the fact that Magneto chose to strike down his own son, I mean, that idea lasts forever, no matter which reality.
Number 10, being named traitor. As awful as this one is, it ranks a little lower on our list because, well, Wanda kind of deserved this one. After the events of House of M, Wanda was seen as one of the biggest mutant traitors around, still being believed at this point to be a mutant. Oddly enough, Scarlet Witch was one of the few prominent mutants in comics who has never been part of the X-Men team, and was really only an Avenger. If you're wondering why that is, a big part of it in the later years has to do with mutants hating her due to the fact that she basically wiped them from existence with her wish of no more mutants, which we now refer to as decimation. Well, that and she was initially too busy serving on her father's villainous team of mutants, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Still, although she did earn the title traitor, much of what has happened as a result of House of M happened because of basically how harshly people were treating Wanda. So, although she earned the title traitor, it still feels a little harsh to say that she entirely deserved it. I've always thought of Wanda as more of a misguided villain when she plays that role, as opposed to a true and sincere villain in the comics. Number 9, cast as a villain. To expand on our previous point a bit more, a few of the worst things that have happened to Scarlet Witch usually involve her being cast in some kind of villainous role, despite the fact that she is truly a hero when it all comes down to it. Scarlet Witch only ever wants to do what's best, and usually it's some kind of outward manipulation or force that turns her momentarily evil or causes her to break down and commit some kind of heinous action. It does make for some pretty interesting stories, but it's pretty awful the number of times and how severely Scarlet Witch has been used in this way by others and when it comes to storytelling. Number 8, betrayed by her fiance. Remember when Wanda was about to marry Dr. Doom and then it was implied that he really only wanted to be with her because he wanted to take her power from her? Granted, it seemed like he also wanted to do so to help her and help the world, but of course it's still Doom, so you can bet that ego and selfishness were a big part of the reasoning behind this plot as well. Scarlet Witch no longer remembered who she was when her reincarnated son and member of the Young Avengers, Wiccan, came to find her. All she knew was that she loved Victor Von Doom and was ready to marry him, despite the fact that he had kind of manipulated her. Her love was real, but the backstory that she believed she belonged to wasn't. Wanda ended up spurned and mistreated by Doom even after the truth came out, and she still tried to help him. And before we move on to this next point, just a quick reminder to give this video a thumbs up if you are enjoying it. It really does help us out, I promise. Number 7, being named Pretender. What could be worse than being referred to as a traitor? Well, how about when Scarlet Witch was referred to as an imposter? This was the new label she was given after it was revealed that she was not actually a mutant, but had been led to believe that she was one for most of her life, due to the High Evolutionary disguising her and her twin brother as both mutants after experimenting on them, and apparently giving them powers himself. During the Dawn of X relaunch in an issue of X-Men, we actually see stories being told of Scarlet Witch where young mutants are taught to refer to her as a pretender, someone who posed as a mutant but was not one and could not be trusted. Seems a little unfair considering that Wanda herself did not know her true origin until much later in life. She wasn't lying, she had been manipulated into believing she was truly a mutant and Magneto's daughter. Number 6, death of her family. Even in the MCU, Wanda has a tragic origin story. In the cinematic universe, she and her brother Pietro were orphaned at a young age after they managed to survive an attack that collapsed their apartment. Their parents were killed in the explosion that decimated their home, but they survived after a second missile landed but did not explode. However, this experience would go on to haunt them for the rest of their days, with the name on the missile being burned into their memories for years to come. And that name, of course, was Stark, which is why when we first meet the Maximoff twins in Age of Ultron, they are enemies and not allies of the Avengers. Number 5, having Magneto for a father. At least for the time she did. While in the comics, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch are no longer considered the children of Magneto, they still had him as a father for many years and across many alternate Earths as well. While Magneto might be good with magnetizing, he is not very good at parenting. Magneto is usually a pretty strict father who has demanded much from his children over the years. I think Wanda, in terms of having a caring parent, was actually better off with her sentient cow mom that the High Evolutionary created. Number 4, spell backfire. Even when Wanda tries to do good, she can't catch a break. In the X-Men Empire series tie-in, Scarlet Witch seeks to right her wrongs by bringing back all those mutants lost in the massacre at Genosha. She is trying to atone for her past and all the harm that she has brought to mutant kind. But poor Wanda can't seem to catch a break. Her ritual to revive the dead backfires and instead simply turns those that she's trying to bring back into zombie mutants, instead of bringing them, fully back to life. To make matters worse, we later find out that Doctor Strange warned her against trying to make amends for her sins this way, telling her she couldn't do what had already been done. This made Wanda think that she simply needed to shift her focus instead of realizing that she needed to actually forge new paths as opposed to undoing old tragedies. Number 3, Vision's death. Going back to the MCU for a moment, one of the worst things that happened to Elizabeth Olsen's Scarlet Witch was the death of Ultron in Infinity War. Wanda had to kill her synthezoid lover herself after Thanos showed up to attack Wakanda during an attempted procedure to safely remove the Mind Stone from Vision, attempted by Black Panther's brilliant sister, the Princess Shuri. As the procedure was cut short and everyone was pulled into the fray, Thanos was on his way to claim that stone when Viz asked Wanda to destroy it, and by extension destroy him. She initially refused but reluctantly agreed when Viz pressed her and insisted that she wouldn't and couldn't hurt him with her powers, and that all he felt when she used them on him was her. No pain, just her. Aw, so cute. Through tears, Scarlet Witch used her powers to destroy the stone, only to watch Thanos show up and use the Time Stone to rewind time, bring Vision back to life, so that he could destroy him by ripping the Mind Stone out of his head very painfully. Yikes. Number 2, possessed by Chthon. This is one of those times that Wanda was made a villain truly without any of her own intent steering her there. Wanda was actually marked by Chthon at birth to act as the Elder God's vessel, should he find a way to return. Chthon would actually succeed in possessing Wanda and using her to return on more than one occasion, though the first time around was probably the worst, when Mordred summoned Chthon via a ritual, allowing the god to basically take hold of Wanda and leaving the Avengers powerless against his will. Fortunately, the disaster that would be Chthon's return was averted before the ritual could be fully completed. Thank goodness for dolls with parts of Wanda's soul in them. That's what happened. Number 1, losing her children. If you were to ask Wanda what one of the worst things that ever happened to her was, I'm sure she would likely answer the loss of her children. Although she would get her 2 twin boys, Billy and Tommy, back when their souls were basically reborn into our world, reincarnating them, she would never really get back the family that she had initially willed into existence. Using her power and from her desire, Wanda made it possible for her and Vision to have children together, and Wanda gave birth to 2 twin boys. However, when others learned that they weren't real and that their existence was kind of making reality unstable, they forced Scarlet Witch to confront the truth, temporarily destroying or displacing her children. Since they weren't really fully destroyed, because they kind of did come back, but just in a really weird comic book way.
Wolverine has taken on many names: Wolverine, Logan, James, Weapon X, and yet no matter where life takes him, he doesn't know peace. Wolverine's life has literally never been easy, not even from day one. He was a child born out of wedlock, and his mom didn't really care for him. In fact, she wasn't around much as she was institutionalized after Wolverine's half-brother died. His biological father, Thomas Logan, wasn't a good person, nor was his other half-brother, Dog Logan. His maternal grandfather was extremely abusive. The only good thing in his life at this point was his friend Rose and John Howlett, his stepfather. But Wolverine is a superhero, which means nothing good ever lasts long. Thomas and Dog killed Wolverine's puppy, leading them to get expelled from the estate. But Thomas did not have it in him to go with Grace. He got drunk and broke into the Howlett mansion with a shotgun. John Howlett tried to protect his wife, but was taken out by Thomas. Young Wolverine witnessed this firsthand, and this was what triggered his mutant abilities for the first time. His claws scarred Dog's face and were the last thing Thomas saw. Wolverine's mother, now terrified, cast him out. The entire ordeal caused so much stress to her already frail mental state, she too ended her life with Thomas's shotgun. Rose fled with Wolverine to BC, where the two did get to experience peace for a bit. Wolverine, though, has the privilege of a healing factor which saves him at least once or twice every storyline. This healing factor is useful, but it can also give him partial amnesia. Traumatic events alter your brain chemistry, so his healing factor patches that up, meaning that he will forget the hard stuff. Rose later died in Logan's arms after a fight went sideways, so he's off to a great start. Wolverine has had quite a long list of ill-fated romances, but he made it as far as an actual wedding with love interest Mariko Yashida. The two fell in love when she visited him in New York, but it wasn't meant to be as she was already betrothed. Wolverine ended up dueling her father, leader of criminal organization Clan Yashida, for her hand. He lost, but it's the thought that counts. They did duel a second time, and Wolverine won that one, and then Wolverine and her were engaged shortly after. Invites were sent out to Wolverine's teammates. Unfortunately, after After the X-Men super guests arrived, they were all poisoned by some tea from crime lord Viper. She was also working with the Silver Samurai, who is also Marioko's half-brother. The X-Men are taken to the hospital in critical condition, except for Wolverine, because of his healing factor. The Silver Samurai and Viper send Wolverine on a wild goose chase to get him away from the hospital so they can take out the vulnerable X-Men. Wolverine does make it back in time to save the X-Men. He nearly ends the Silver Samurai, but Viper teleports them out of there. The X-Men all recover and everyone is wedding ready. But Marioko calls it off. The reason? Apparently she no longer thought Wolverine was worthy. We later learn she was just being mind controlled. Doesn't cancel out the heartbreak Wolverine experienced, and we even get to see Wolverine cry in the final panel. Wolverine has been a part of some pretty major historical events, both World Wars, the Prohibition era, and even the Valentine's Day Massacre. This event is a real thing that happened in 1920 Chicago. In our world, there were no survivors from this horrible day, but in the MCU, Wolverine was the only man to make it out alive. Wolverine, now going by Logan, got into some hot water with Al Capone as Capone controlled Chicago's gang scene, and thus anything illegal coming through, like for example the alcohol Logan was smuggling into the US with his girlfriend. Leading up to Valentine's Day, there were a few fights between Logan and Capone's men, leading to many casualties, including Logan's girlfriend. Her death was what drove Logan to find the famous mob boss. Capone denied having a hand in Logan's girlfriend's death and sent him to the person that did. But surprise, it was just a setup to get Logan to the site of the Valentine's Day Massacre. He almost doesn't make it out, but his healing factor has his back. Wolverine has been captured way too many times to count. This time, he was being tracked by recurring enemy Victor Creed. Victor found Wolverine unconscious in the middle of a murder scene and snatched him away before the authorities arrived. He took him to the Ravencroft Institute so that scientist Nathaniel Essex could experiment on him. The experiments included a lobotomy, which led to a coma, and a loss of his left arm. To recap, at this point, Wolverine has gone from accused of crimes he didn't commit, to kidnapped, to lobotomized, to having his arm cut off. Not a good week so far. One of the doctors, Claudia Russell, freed Wolverine, who is now out of his coma due to his healing factor. The pair was confronted by Victor Creed, and Claudia knew that Wolverine couldn't take a fight with Creed in his state, so she sent him away, facing Victor herself. This was a more evenly matched fight than you'd think. Turns out Claudia was a werewolf, and she was the one committing the crimes. She didn't win the fight, but it was enough for Wolverine to get away. It's unclear how his arm came back, but if I had to guess, it was probably the healing factor. It's pretty rare that Wolverine ever fully dies, but one way that has been confirmed to finish the job is drowning. The healing factor requires oxygen, so take that away and Wolverine is done for. It's a fact that has been confirmed in Uncanny X-Force 33 and Wolverine Black, White, and Blood issue 4. The serious drowning situation in Uncanny X-Force involved Wolverine, a student of his Evan, and Wolverine's son Daken. Daken has hated Wolverine since he was abandoned by him. Wolverine didn't even know he was born. But Daken is still set on causing Wolverine's demise and doing so while Wolverine watches one of his students get attacked. It's not cute. Eventually though, Wolverine does get saved and he and his son fight it out. His son loses the match after Wolverine holds him face down in a shallow puddle. In Black, White, and Blood, Wolverine finds himself in shark-infested waters. He is clearly very set on not drowning, admitting that if he were to pass out from blood loss and sink to the bottom of the ocean, his healing factor would bring him back, just for him to drown again in a continuous, horrifying loop. Until a miracle occurs, of course, and someone drags him above ground. This is one of the only confirmed ways to permanently end Wolverine. Another major historical event Logan had the displeasure of experiencing was the bombing of Hiroshima. I am not kidding. During the Second World War, Logan is captured by soldiers in Japan. He gets his usual treatment of being put in a local prison. He eventually escapes beside Lieutenant Ethan Warren, who will soon become a problem. Logan finds a place to relax for a while with a local girl and they fall in love, but again, good things can't last for him and Lieutenant Warren reappears. The mutant fights Logan's lover, who is a talented swordswoman, but eventually overpowers and ends her. This brings Logan into the fight, but as the two are pummeling each other, a plane is soon overheard overhead. The plane that is carrying the atomic bomb. It destroys the city and injures the two men. Logan's healing factor is working overtime as it now has to regenerate Logan's entire outer skin layer and half his insides. He looks bad, y'all. At this point, two things things are consistent for Wolverine. He will be pummeled to near death, and his healing factor will ensure that he suffers another day. This was taken to the extreme in Uncanny X-Men Annual number 11. In this comic, Wolverine actually does die. It's a pretty serious fight with the powerful being Horde. Horde wants the Crystal of Ultimate Vision and tasks the X-Men with getting it for him. He wants it because the crystal has life-sustaining powers and grants complete understanding of the universe to whoever uses it. Towards the end of the comic, Wolverine and Horde are battling it out. Wolverine perishes due to a spear to the back, and Horde resolves to take part of Wolverine as his prize. This is ultimately his undoing. Through this action, a drop of Wolverine's blood gets on the crystal, and the power of it literally regenerates Wolverine's being. Normally, his healing factor would not be capable of bringing him back from just a drop of blood. It was the crystal that gave it a power boost, kind of like a Wolverine jump cable. He has the crystal's power flowing through him at this point and uses that to defeat Horde. At this point, Wolverine is basically a god, meaning he can feel every part of the universe and even manipulate it to his will. But the man does have a conscience and realizes that no one should have this level of power. The crystal is now deemed as a threat to the universe and is destroyed by Wolverine, and he lives to suffer another day. Wolverine famously has a thing for Jean Grey. This has led to a lot of emotional and physical pain over the years. New X-Men issue 148 really wanted to destroy this man. Wolverine and Jean Grey are lured to Asteroid M, old headquarters mutant enemy number 1, Magneto. We find that Magneto has spent the last little while creating a plan to destroy the X-Men by preying on their weaknesses. For Wolverine and Jean, they are trapped on this asteroid that is slowly heading towards the sun. The heat and dwindling oxygen make it increasingly difficult for Grey to function, causing her to slowly die. Just before the two enter the sun, Wolverine mercy kills Grey so she won't have to experience being burned up. Wolverine does get to experience this though, as he walks the two of them straight into it. What he doesn't know is that killing her and walking into the sun triggered the Phoenix, which Jean is then able to use to save the pair and transport them down to Earth just in time to save the day. Unfortunately, Wolverine lost her for real in the end as Magneto shocked her with an extreme amount of power. Wolverine, now feral, ended Magneto right then and there, so Wolverine has to deal with the pain of losing her again, twice, once at his own hand, and is now one of the only few who knows what it's like to be burned up by the sun. In the same issue, we learn that Wolverine was once trapped under a glacier for 6 months. That's already awful. It gets worse because glaciers don't have much to eat in or around or under them, meaning that Wolverine got creative with his healing factor, using it to regrow his skin whenever his hunger took a piece off. He is likely also stuck in a constant state of all-over regeneration for this period. His healing factor is forced to not only regenerate his arm, but also any skin that is being damaged by frostbite, making him immune to the effects of it. It is currently unclear how Wolverine got under the iceberg or how he got out. The Old Man Logan storyline has a reputation for being one of the most heartbreaking Wolverine series. For good reason. One particularly famous moment happened in Wolverine Volume 3, number 70. At this point, America is divided into sections belonging to various villains and villain races. An elderly Logan and Hawkeye, they must travel across this chaotic, now wasteland, to deliver an important parcel. They have to pass the time somehow, and Wolverine chooses to do so by telling Hawkeye about the day he decided to retract his claws for good. In the evening, the X-Mansion suddenly receives dozens of distress calls before being attacked by a group of powerful supervillains. Wolverine desperately tries evacuating all the students while simultaneously fighting. He slowly works his way through every villain until it's just him and Bullseye. But Bullseye's last words are what flips this all on its head. He asks Logan, "Why are you doing this? You're supposed to be our friend." Turns out, Logan wasn't attacking supervillains, but instead his own teammates and friends. Actual supervillain Mysterio appeared after the carnage was over, revealing the true scene to Logan. Logan was extremely distressed and heartbroken by what he did, and spent the next few weeks wandering the forest until finally stopping on some train tracks to end Wolverine once and for all.
Number 10. Cyclops and Wolverine's Schism. Schism was basically Wolverine and Cyclops fighting over ideologies, particularly ideologies surrounding the young mutants' minds that they were subjecting to danger literally all the time. Wolverine believed in a more nurturing parental approach, while Cyclops had the idea to treat these youngins like soldiers. Cyclops' approach is bad enough, but the whole initiation of this fight was another low for the mutant Boy Scout. Cyclops founded Utopia, giving mutants a place to live, but but a place that was now being threatened by a new Hellfire Club that attacked a group of young X-Men at a museum opening, taking hostages. Cyclops and Wolverine were racing to get there but were too slow, so to Wolverine's horror, Cyclops ordered Teenage Mutant Oya to de-life all the Hellfire soldiers, which she did successfully. The fight between Cyclops and Wolverine then split the mutant community down the middle. Number 9. X-Men vs. Inhumans. The Inhumans were an offshoot of humanity that were experimented on by the Kree, gaining powers from a process called Terrigenesis, using Terrigen mists. Now it turns out, these mists are basically poisonous to the mutant population, and mutants were hurt when mists were released on Earth. The Inhumans in response felt pretty bad and were all for some kind of peaceful resolution to the issue. But Emma Frost made a whole plan that all the mutants, including the X-Men, agreed to except for Beast, Forge, and Rogue. Emma also basically staged the passing of Cyclops at the hands of Black Bolt of the Inhumans to get the mutants to fight back against the Inhumans, who weren't even trying to fight in the first place, causing a whole war between the two groups. It makes no sense, but that's how it is, I guess. If you guys love mutants and these videos, be sure to drop a quick like on this video. It's all you gotta do to show us your support. Thanks, nerds. Number 8. Danger. While working to upgrade the Danger Room by installing Shi'ar technology one night, the Danger Room spoke to Professor Xavier and asked, "Where am I?" Realizing that the Danger Room had mutated and become alive, but still needing to train his X-Men, Professor Xavier made the choice to just ignore and hide the life form from his X-Men. Not smart, since later, the Danger Room began to control other machines in an attempt to gain a body. After sending an Omega Sentinel to battle the X-Men, the Danger Room convinced a student at the school, Wing, to de-life himself, which resulted in the breaking of its prime directive and the physical manifestation of the being named Danger, taking on a female appearance. After locking all of the students in a nightmarish simulation, Danger battled and defeated the X-Men, then went on to do a whole bunch of much worse things herself. Number 7. Wolverine. In Wolverine Origins number 29, it's revealed that Wolverine was originally sent to assassinate Xavier as a member of the secret Weapon X experiments. Xavier, obviously able to read Wolverine's mind, sees the attack coming and thwarts it by brainwashing the aggressive Canadian into becoming a member of the X-Men. He removed a bunch of old memories, implanted some new ones, and basically left Wolverine's mind a confused mess. But Xavier managed to get what he wanted, which is a powerful weapon to fight for his cause, so good job, dude. Number 6. The Phoenix 5. In the 2012 crossover event Avengers vs. X-Men, the Cosmic Phoenix Force was coming to Earth, and when it arrived, it was split up into 5, giving our heroes a new problem in the form of the Phoenix 5. The quintet consisted of X-Men veterans including Cyclops, Emma Frost, Namor, Magik, and Colossus, who began reshaping the world according to their will until they themselves became a threat. As each member of the 5 fell, those left standing got more and more powerful, leaving Scott and Emma, who were becoming more tyrannical by the minute. To stop the two of them, Professor X was recruited by Magneto, but the cosmic entity had consumed Scott and even basically made him betray Emma Frost to gain more power. After a mental battle between him and Xavier, Scott used his power to actually take the life of his father figure, mentor, and dear friend, becoming the Dark Phoenix until he was defeated by Hope Summers and Scarlet Witch. And at number 5 is X-Force. X-Force. The X-Men Black Ops team. Cyclops' own little hit squad. There are more than a few not so great things this sub-team has done. Cyclops forcing X-23 to be on the team, performing assassinations, etc, etc. It's all bad. But after Cyclops disbanded the team, Wolverine kept it going on his own, and they took on a bit of a sinister task when they decided to take out a younger cloned version of Apocalypse to prevent him becoming a threat. This particular assassination almost didn't go through, but then Phantom X just popped the little clone in the head. Yes, it's incredibly messed up, but hey, then he cloned the clone and raised it in a virtual reality to give it all the nurturing it needed to be a good Apocalypse. Number 4, Professor X Mind Wipe. Professor X has a history of just impulsively wiping and manipulating people's minds, which never goes well in the long run, but for some reason, he just keeps doing it, even to those he considers friends and colleagues. Reed Richards, with whom Xavier worked with on the Illuminati, which is a whole other bad time, feared for his son's life and built a machine that would take away a mutant's powers. Reed's son, Franklin Richards, is an incredibly powerful being with reality warping abilities and was believed to be a mutant, which he wasn't, but that's another story. Professor X took exception to the machine that Reed built, so he completely wiped away the knowledge of the machine from Richards' mind. He made sure that Richards would never be able to build another one ever again, tampering with the mind of a man he used to call a friend. Number 3, Professor X Mind Wipe Mark II. It's not just colleagues that Professor X has manipulated. No sir, not by a long shot. But in Giant Size X-Men number 1, Charles Xavier has to put together a brand new X-Men team thanks to the fact that his original X group is being held captive by the living island Krakoa. However, we learn later that this new team wasn't the only one, because Professor X already sent out another new squad of X-Men to save his original team, and they were all horribly killed. Vulcan, Sway, Darwin, and Petra all seem to perish at the hands of Krakoa, and rather than admit his poor decision making, getting a bunch of mutants killed in action, Charles erases the minds of everyone who knew about this team, including Vulcan's older brother, Cyclops, which came and bit him in the butt when Vulcan turned out to be alive and came for some revenge. Number 2, Beast and Terra Verde. After the mutant nation of Krakoa was founded with its various different organizations and groups, the former X-Men Hank McCoy was put in charge of the intelligence wing of X-Force, which was the mutant nation's equivalent to something like the CIA, for example. This means that Beast is now one of the shadiest damn mutants you ever did see, and one of the most prominent examples of just how shady he now is comes in his response to an attack from the Republic of Terra Verde. Beast modifies the telefloronic biotech of the country of Terra Verde to take complete control of that country and its people. From there, he used them to seed telefloronic listening devices in embassies and basically used the state as a puppet for intel gathering. Hank transformed the nation into a literal puppet state and robbed its people of their free will. And in at number 1 is the secret of mutant resurrection. This one is gonna split a few people, and I'm kind of even on the fence about this one. Basically, if you don't know, in recent comics, mutants on their new nation of Krakoa have devised a means of resurrecting their own using a group of 5 mutants known, surprisingly, as the 5. Resurrection in comic books happens on an almost absurd basis, but this proven method of consistently bringing back the dead is different, and the mutants are very aware of that fact and even go to great lengths to keep it a secret from the rest of the world. The reason kinda makes sense, as 1, they can't really bring back non-mutants anyways, and 2, the amount of people who would be outraged at the fact that the mutants are allowed to revive themselves but us regular humans have to suffer through all the pain and loss of losing a loved one and can't do anything about it, it would just cause mass outrage and further turn the world against mutants. Still, devising the means for resurrection and not even trying to inform the world? Kinda hella sus.